Hey guys, a thrilling podcast today. We have one of the top agents for RE/MAX, Dave Shalabi, and we're going to be talking about the state of the market. We're going to be talking about real estate agents, why they should be investing and why they are not, and where the real estate industry is going. So get ready for an awesome podcast. Hi guys, welcome. We have one of the top agents for RE/MAX today, Dave Shalabi, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, investing from an agent's perspective and kind of how he got in the business and state of the market. So, Dave, let's start with a little bit of background. How long in the business?
18 years.
18 years. Okay. So you got in kind of what time? 2000?
So 2007 was my first year.
No kidding, 2007.
And we had, starting out, there's no business. And
Right.
then 2008, huge crash. And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
what did I get myself into?
Got it. What did you do before?
I was a surgical radiologic technician at Northwestern Hospital.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was it something that led you to real estate?
So I've always loved real estate. I remember telling my dad, God rest his soul, when I was like 16 years old, there was these townhomes that were like down the street from where my dad built our house. My parents built the house. I'm like, I really want to invest in real estate. I'm like, we could buy these things and we can rent them out.
Sure.
And then like down the road, someone else has just paid our mortgage for us. And he's like, yeah, it kind of doesn't really work. Like it's a little bit more complex than that. Yeah. But I always loved real estate and I love the freedom behind it. And we came from like a educated yet entrepreneurial family.
Got
so
it.
that was interesting.
So you're with RE/MAX. I was with RE/MAX for a long time.
The whole time, yeah.
The whole time.
18 years, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So where do you see the market today, right? In terms of, I guess let's talk kind of globally in terms of like the franchise model. A lot of independence at one time, that was a big thing. Then a lot of franchise things took over. Now again, it's splintered. What do you see?
So truthfully, and it's not that I'm, being overly biased, but
Sure.
I feel like the RE/MAX brand still has remained from a market share perspective, number one, like let's say in my 35 market areas.
Got it.
So like in my hometown and where we have, several other offices, we're still very, very vibrant. And I still think and the residual brand does help when people say, hey, my parents have used RE/MAX, right?
Sure.
Or like, and I felt like that was the first person that I thought of in real estate.
Got it.
However, I do think that there's a lot of benefit in the independent world as well, though, right? I could see like, people like the soft touch and they like the fact that I can go directly to an individual. So there's definitely pros on both sides.
Got it. Now, a lot of changes in the real estate industry, right? The huge change, obviously, NAR thing came down a few months ago.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that? Because I know, kind of finding out a little bit of your background, you've been involved on that side also.
Yes. So it's funny because August 17th, 2024 is like sketched in my brain. I
Sure.
think that's when the industry definitely took a significant change. Look, I'm one that loves to embrace change as a positive and see how that can affect our industry in a positive manner. I do think that, there's a lot of moving parts here, right? I think that it's forcing the independent brokers or the brokers that are doing, let's say, with all due respect, 1 to 3 deals a year to be pushed out of the industry. It's also forcing brokers to say, this is what we need to talk through a buyer representation and really say what that is. And I love that. Every buyer representation agreement that we've come through our office has come in. We've educated them even more than before. It's worked out really, really quite well. But I think that's having a huge impact on the society because now people that don't do a respectable amount of business are kind of like, what do I do now? Right? Like, what's happening now? Like, wait, you're supposed to pay me as a listing end. No. Like, you're supposed to be, as you know, you're supposed to see you're supposed to have a signed agreement prior to having, and your compensation agreed with your buyer prior to seeing any properties. And I'm seeing that a lot of agents are not following that.
From looking from it, because now I don't sell any real estate, as we'll talk about it, since 2009. So I have a little bit outsider's perspective because I'm on the investment side, obviously. Sure. And what I saw was since 2017, right? The market was like, oh, it's going to crash now. Then 2018, it's too high. 19, it's too high. Oh, Corona, it's got to be. And then we all know what happened. And the industry has really become so bloated. And we see that happen in especially real estate industry because the barrier to entry. If you can breathe, and you can take the test 9 times, right? And anybody can basically pass the test pretty much if you're persistent enough that because of that, the barrier to entry is low. Right?
Which should be changed.
That should be changed, 100%.
Yeah.
So, I think that's where you're going with it, which I agree with, which is that you do 1, 2, 3 deals. Yeah. Hey, there's no barrier to entry. The cost of doing business is fairly low, right? So anybody can get their broker's license, professional or not. Right. And I think this sort of a change is going to force that, right?
Yes.
It's kind of an unwanted force, but that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So how is that settled out from your end? Because clearly, I mean, you're doing a ton of business.
Thank you.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why we want to have some of the top agents come and talk from their perspective in the industry. How have you seen that, especially for first-time home buyers, FHA buyers? How has that changed? How do you explain to somebody, all the different types of agencies that can be there? Because that can be confusing and overwhelming for somebody.
Yeah, I think so. I always try to take this model, and people say, "Wow, like you've ranked #1 for Remax in the state of Illinois or in Northern Illinois for so many years. Like you must be working like 24/7." I say, "We just have great systems." Okay. So I always try to compare and say, like, if you went to McDonald's and I think that realtors #1 have to answer your question. I think you have to treat your business like a business, right? #2, I ask a lot of realtors from the people that we coach or the people that we speak to, and they say, do you treat every client equally? And they think it's from I said, no, are they getting the same client experience from start to finish every time? That's our goal, right? They say, wow, I never thought of it that way. If you went to McDonald's and you ordered the cheeseburger, it would be the same exact taste and everything 100 times. Whereas a lot of times they're juggling and there's no systems in place. So I'm pushing people to have systems, but so with the systems, Andrew, we oversimplify and tell them, here are your options. Here's the agency options, and then we break that down for individuals, and we make sure they understand thoroughly before they leave.
Got it.
So that works out really well for us.
Got it. So from a doing business perspective, because there are a couple of interesting points you brought up. So in the vein of I'm a first-time home buyer.
Right.
I'm overwhelmed. I wanted to buy a house, and I am not sure, because this happens to all of us, right? For the first house, where it's like, man, I'm embarrassed because I'm not quite sure if I can even afford it, right? I'm not sure if I have the money, right? And these are things people may not say it. Right. Most people won't, but these are all things we have had, right? And now on top of that, you add agency, because that public awareness, has that started coming to the public, or are you guys still in the process of educating the public?
So it's a combination of both, right? So a lot of people, because it became which I'm very not that I'm happy about the lawsuit per se, but that it happened nationally has helped, because it's not just an Illinois thing or a Chicagoland area. We say this is across the United States. These are licensed law changes. To answer the question about the first-time home buyers, look, we understand that they have to be, they have to be given their proper time.
Sure.
Right? And you have to kind of hold them through that process, because you want to inform them as much as possible. We try to do a semi-pre-screening to say, okay, typically lenders are looking for a debt-to-income ratio, for instance, below 55%.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about your finances. Let's talk about your car payments, and then we'll push them over to the lender. And we never, ever, ever, ever prefer to have any search started with a dollar amount without knowing what that pre-approved dollar amount is. I think there's a lot of mistakes that could be made there. When agents set you up on a search for $350,000, and in reality your affordability is $305,000. Yeah. That might be the difference of an extra half bath or an extra bedroom, and now they're comparing throughout that whole process. So
because of course they're going to like a more expensive house, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's with a car. You see a $100,000 car, and then your budget is $50,000.
Right.
Of course, right? And so you're basically saying is #1 is education for them, right? And #2 is both from an agent's perspective in terms of time, and from a client's perspective, setting them up for success.
Right.
Right. So you mentioned something interesting, because, and I guess I'll phrase it this way, right? Because for a lot of people that watch, a lot of people that may consume this content, they're like, man, what does it take to become the #1 agent? I mean, was your dad in the business?
No.
Is it because you got a money tree that you shake at the back of your yard? What the hell does it take?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm oversimplifying, but it comes down to 4 or 5 things. Passion, hard work, honesty, integrity, and systems.
Got it.
It really does. And it's like, wow, there it is. But, a lot of times on the radar, people don't talk about honesty or integrity or ethics. I mean, if you read, hundreds of our reviews, there's a consistent pattern there. Dave was great with us. He had a great personality, but he was honest. He was ethical. He led me in the right direction. Like, he nurtured our relationship. We're not in the sales world. You have to look at, I remember shifting our thought process about 13 or 14 years ago and saying, we're in the customer service business. How can I help the client get from where they are and where they want to go, rather than how many properties can I sell? And I would hear this and then the real estate, sales fall in place. They do. They really do. But I don't look at an individual as a dollar amount. Like we've gotten 3 referrals from past clients, or network partners recently, and it's like, Dave, are you okay? Like, this is under 200,000. I'm like, of course. Like, it's a referral. One of them was a rental. One of them was a higher end sale for like 650. It's about helping individuals in their process. One person was going through a really bad divorce, and my former physician client was like, listen, I need, like, we need someone we could trust.
Sure.
Like, she really needs like good guidance, and like, you're the first name that I thought of. So it's a combination of I remember the first 18 months I didn't take a day off, and my days off were Sundays, and those were like 8-hour days,
Sure.
right? But that's because you're building a system, and you're building a work ethic for yourself. My parents came to this country; they were super hard workers, right? And like, they set the example of, and my siblings are all great hard workers, so it's not by coincidence. So yes, it definitely takes hard work. But now, you're at a point in your career, like, your kids are grown. I attend all my kids' functions. We've got 2 basketball games today, back to back. Like, I'm not looking down at my phone during that. Like, I one thing that I promised myself in the last several years is to truly live in the moment. So I'm at all my children's functions. We have a date night every week with my wife. There's no phones. There's no kids. There's no talking about the kids. And then we have like Sundays our family day. Yesterday we ordered one of our favorite pizza joints. We played Monopoly as a family. Then we played ping pong. It's just in the moment. So it's creating good systems for quality of life.
So in terms of managing your time, right, because that's one of the biggest things for most.
Yeah.
I think a couple of things with the agents and I can say this because I was an agent for a long time. Number one, time management, right? Number two is not chasing your tail, understanding when to, right? Because you could be that guy that just services somebody so much, right? That you're losing money in that transaction, right? And the other thing is taxes. Right, most agents don't pay their taxes on time. Right, those are 3 things that I observe in the industry in general. For you said like family time, having a business rather than a solopreneur that's running around in circles. If you're doing that many transactions, do you have buyer's agents? You're going out on all listing appointments. How does that work to run a team like that?
So nobody gets, every single client of ours gets Dave Shalabi.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely,
wow.
right?
Okay.
So we have great infrastructure in the back end that allows us to be here today, for instance, right? Every listing appointment, there's not been, I can't think of one instance, unless I was literally out of town or out of the country, where someone, no, I would say 99.999% or 100% of the time, I'm on every listing appointment.
Oh, okay.
The buyers, there's definitely some overflow. Like, for instance, like if Sunday's my family day, like, we may have somebody that would pick up for us on that day if clients wanted to see that. But I'm part of every single transaction. And I still have a great quality of life.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you have...
So the back end is great.
The back end is good. So you have a team that basically helps you...
Staff,
okay, got it. So as far as... now, are you on the RE/MAX, the ownership side of the office also?
Thank God, no.
You're just the agent side of it.
No,
okay,
just agent,
right. No, because that's something a lot of people... That's another rabbit hole people will go down. That, I'm a good agent, so now suddenly I'm going to become a broker manager. And their production suffers, their life suffers. Now you're managing a whole slew of people, putting out a lot of fires. So you haven't stepped in that direction.
Know what you do best, and do it best,
and stick to it.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess how have you seen a shift in the market in terms of on the investor side, right? What are you seeing happening in general? Meaning number of investors out of the market, be it with flips, be it with rentals in the south suburbs where you guys operate?
So the southwest suburbs has been pretty vibrant, actually. I would say that when flips are done well, and the end product looks really, really nice and with good quality, they're eaten up on the market very rapidly. I mean, I would highly encourage people to be tapping into this market, right? I think it's a semi-untapped area, and I think that there's a lot of myths out there because people are not educated, and you're doing a great job of educating those individuals that they don't know how to get into it and dive into it. So it's very vibrant. People are definitely willing to pay. I'm seeing it on a constant basis. Sometimes I'm like scratching my head, like top dollar for something that's completely finished, where they could have done the work themselves, but they're like, no, I really want it to be pristine, and I can move in tomorrow.
And I think there's a generational change also, which is gone
Generational?
Meaning
Absolutely.
Gone are the days where people are like, oh, well, I'm going to buy with old paneling and then I can fix it up. And I mean, today, number one, people don't have the time.
Right.
And number two, they neither have the willingness nor do they have the skill set to go do the work myself after I move in a house. Those days are gone. I mean, not everybody, but majority of the population wants everything done for them. And for that, they're willing to pay a price.
And I would agree with you Perfectly said.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They understand that I will pay a premium for it to be done because I don't want to put my time and energy into doing any of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those days in America when everybody worked on their own homes or own cars, I mean, that era is gone, right? That's kind of the bygone days today, at least in the markets that we're in.
I'm seeing it significantly less than ever before. I mean, to the point where like people say, well, if I have to change, carpeting or do some paint, they're like, I guess I'll suck it up and do it. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like it's, yeah.
No, but people are not brought up that way nowadays, right?
True.
Their parents aren't doing
Generational thought
it.
process.
It's generational thought process is changing, and I mean, the availability of credit, financing, all of these tools that maybe back in the 70s, 80s, 90s were not as available, right? And the mentality was very different, right? Maybe somebody like your father, when they came, like they were literally dead broke. They coming to America seeking an opportunity. That's that. And they had to do it. And it's not that there was no other choice, right? And so that was a very different mentality than today where a lot of people that are educated come to America, they're like, boom, they have good jobs. And they're like, hey man, I'm buying a property in Naperville, first house, 600,000, right? And it's a different mindset. What are you seeing in terms of, because in an area where you're in, right, south suburbs, you have some suburbs where the taxes in ratio of the price of the houses are astronomical.
True.
Right? How do you deal with that? I mean, is that something that comes up whenever, be it an investor, be it a home buyer, is you could have a property, $200,000, $250,000, and the damn taxes are $9,000 on one house.
Right.
The house next door, the taxes are $6,000. Right.
So we're pretty blessed in our geographical area, the southwest suburbs. So when I say that, just for the viewers to know, it's it's Orland Park and then kind of stemming outward. The Orland Park, Palos Park, Mokina, Frankfurt area, they're very vibrant. New Lenox.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very fair tax base overall. I may get some pushback on that. People say, no, we're paying too much in taxes. But overall, I found, and I was born and raised there my entire life, it's pretty fair. Now, there is an element when you don't have your homeowner exemption. Sometimes individuals are not getting their exemptions, and that's a different path that we can talk about. But so they're paying more than they should. But realistically, it's been pretty fair balanced in our southwest suburbs. I guess, we just had a triannual assessment, so maybe it's gone up a little bit from that.
Yeah.
But so have the values. To be fair.
The values have, 2.5, 3 times. It's just, it's crazy. So moving to kind of the investment side of it, right? Because a lot of people we talk to are people who want to invest, or we are trying to get them to encourage to invest. But what I've always felt is the closest people to real estate are real estate agents, real estate attorneys, title people, and loan people.
Yes.
Yet they own the least amount of real estate. What do you say to that?
It shocks me. That's what it really does. It's really hard to swallow and say, how are you advising clients on a daily basis to invest, yet you're not practicing what you preach? I mean, investment properties are part of my portfolio. I love them. I teach my kids about them. I talk to them about long-term wealth. I talk to them about setting up payment structure. I talk to them, I'll be closing on one, God willing this week, and I'm going to pull one of my children out of school and say, this is how a closing happens. Here's what happens. I'm going to break down the process. So it shocks me. And I want to encourage the world, just especially as a real estate broker, as the 4 categories that you mentioned, Andrew, so well, is that you've got to get into this. Yeah. It's what happens down the road. We don't have an exit. I always like to say, think about the end in the beginning. And oftentimes people say, and it's never too late to start. Right. But they'll say, I've been selling real estate for 42 years. And I'm like, great. So you must have had an amazing rental portfolio. Like, yeah, I'm getting started. Yeah. I'm like, wow, could you imagine what would have happened if you've gotten started 42 years ago? And I don't mean about acquiring something unreasonable like 10 properties, every single year over 42 years, but it's an opportunity there we should all be taking advantage of.
Why? Why do you think agents don't take advantage of the opportunity, according to you?
I think a lot of it may be that they don't truly understand the investment side as much as that they act like they do. So they may think the process is a lot harder than it truly is.
But I think, and at least from what I see, because I remember working my butt off as an agent, right? And I had tried being broke a few years of my life. It didn't work out that well for me. Right, it didn't suit me that well. Yeah. But and then you realize. But I think the reason it is because people have never built a business, so there's no consistency in the commission structure.
Right.
and it's up and down, up and down, up and down.
True.
And they really buy this mindset of solopreneur, entrepreneur.
Right.
And it's kind of scary because they have income, they have no income. They have income, they have no income. And it's always spent before it's made.
True.
Right? That's kind of what I see from the outside. Would you agree with that perspective?
Yeah, and discipline.
And discipline. Oh,
Right.
100%.
So it's so funny because I oftentimes tell people like the goal to earn more money is so that one day you can earn less money.
Right.
And they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, they don't understand that.
Right. So literally, again, to repeat, the goal to earn more money, at least in my book, is so that one day I could earn less money. Not that I'm not betting on myself.
Right.
But it's that, what is your exit strategy out of the business?
Right.
So that when you do have those, one of the greatest gifts that God gave me was that I started a year after there was a crash. It taught us how to truly make, systems and make the process happen and to really understand the market. Not like, let me get in when there's a high and then let me get out when there's a low because I have another full-time job on the side. Right. So I think it's really, really crucial to, create a mindset that you can exit the business at a certain time in your life and have a retirement, have your 401k, have your pension be the property. And I always joke with people like, your pension of a real estate is great. You get to write it off. It's a depreciating item on your taxes, and you're appreciating in value, which is helping you, and you're also creating residual income.
Right. All at the same time.
It's amazing how people don't take advantage of it. So
a lot of times it's interesting.
Sorry, I'm very passionate about that.
No. I'm not going to mention a name of somebody. You know this person very well. Happens to be a Remax broker, somebody I respect immensely because of the person's work ethic, and I'll never forget this. And I had a tremendous amount of respect for this person. And I remember this person walking into my office sometime maybe 2012, 13. And I'm like, I've always been in awe of the amount of production this person used to do, the GCI earned, and all this stuff. And I remember this person going, Andrew, you think I can buy a foreclosure property?
Wow.
And I was like literally flabbergasted. I'm like, I know what GCI, I don't know what they took home,
sure.
But I know what GCI you were doing.
Yeah.
You're one of the top agents in the state of Illinois, right? And you're asking me, right? I never sold more than 40, 45 houses a year, right?
Which is great, by the way.
But that's the truth, right? But yet my focus always was, how do I build something rather than count the number of units I'm selling,
right?
My focus was a little different because what I used to hate in real estate was the period from this time of the year, the fall, when it would be Thanksgiving to New Year's, because I knew January 1st, I always worked, because guess what happened? The year started over again.
Yeah.
Right? That was the most painful thing for me, and I never could figure out why people were so happy at New Year. I was depressed because I'm like, man, I don't know how I earned the income I did this year.
Yeah.
How the heck am I going to repeat it? Because what I didn't have...
And that's a winner's mindset.
But see, I didn't have the systems in place.
Yeah.
Right? I literally, everybody used to laugh at me. And every day I would stand up, right? Mike Ferry,
yes.
2 headsets, and I would do cold calls 6 hours a day.
Wow.
I did that
You're
for
better
15.
than I.
No. I just, man, it was what it was.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, sometimes, life teaches you that when you're hungry, right? Guess what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when you have no more, and that's what I was trying to work my way out of.
Yeah.
But I was shocked that a person who's this good in sales,
absolutely,
right, didn't have a lot of, because the real estate offices are not set up to teach you this. The real estate brokers, they don't have time. They have so many other fires to put out. There's so many other headaches that they just don't have time to teach you all of these things. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But what is funny is, I was at Remax Central, Miss Kathy Jansen and her husband. Guess what they had bought a lot of? A lot of rental properties.
Yeah.
Right? People would see that they're like, oh, they have this office and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you don't realize in the office, yes, they obviously had good years. They made good money. It's not that. But their real wealth was all the rentals that they had put away. But why do you think that is lacking?
Well, I think you just alluded to it, right? Is that I think that there's a lack of education in individuals to say, how can I contact someone who can help me, walk me through that process? So if the broker's not doing it themselves very well, how could they educate their client on doing it very well, right? There is really, really where the challenge, I think, is. So
another factor of what I see with agents, right, that as agents, we as an industry, I'm talking about, not our egos are way bigger than our. I mean, like literally, some of these agents walk around like you're walking legends, and I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Right.
What is you're even on a good day, you're making maybe a couple of thousand a year, but look at the amount of time you put in, and you have nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Right, nothing yet, and that was interesting. All the agents in the offices that drove fancy cars.
Yeah.
Right, in 2007, 8, 9, at that time, they were all wiped out. And I still used to remember when they had all the jet skis, the boats, and all the things, and I'm putting money away, and I used to feel poorly about it because I'm like, man, I have more listings, I have more sales, and yet these guys have all the toys.
Yeah.
But your life is going to extract a price out of you.
Right.
Either you pay now and enjoy later, or you're going to basically have to pay for the rest of your life.
Right.
Right? Clearly, that discipline came from you from somewhere. Was that from your parents?
Absolutely.
Where did it come from?
My parents. Look, I feel like my dad was born overseas, and he came here at a in a late teenage age, and I saw his profound work ethic. My mom, most people don't talk about their mom's work. My mom's work ethic, she owned her own business. Unbelievable work ethic. And I'm like, I owe it to them. Like my grandfathers came, my grandparents came to this country. My parents came to this country at young ages. I owe it to I have to give 100%. Nothing was just handed to us. Like what was handed to us was far better than money. The life lessons that they taught us that I'm so grateful for, like, I feel like that's what really instilled a great work ethic. Like they didn't tell us about working; they showed us how to work.
Do you think you had like kind of the syndrome that I have big shoes to fill?
Yes.
Right, and I better damn fill them because
Yes.
otherwise, somewhere. I mean, you have kind of the Arab heritage that I'm going to let down my parents.
Never.
Right? No, but that fear of I never want to let them down. Right?
Like it's so funny. I remember being in high school, and I'm like, if I don't get a good grade, like, what's my dad gonna think?
Right.
Like, is my mom gonna lecture me about this? Like,
Right.
my mom's a wonderful person, but she'd lecture, And
Right.
I'm like, I don't want to lecture now for 25 minutes about this. But the number one, the two individuals that I was worried about, the number one thing I was worried about them from is, will I be letting them down?
Letting them 100%.
Not getting a spanking. It's like, oh no, like, are they gonna have that disappointment look in their face?
Right.
And I never wanted that. Even till today, I'm always like, hey, like I want them to always get their blessings.
Yeah, no, I mean, I heard somebody once say, all I am, all I ever will be is because of my father and my mother.
Yeah.
And that I always want to make them proud.
Yeah.
Right? And I think a lot of times when people have that feeling, right, despite of whatever kind of handicaps you may have, in your head, right? You succeed because you feel I have no other option, right? Failure is just not an option.
Or mediocrity.
Right? Or mediocrity is not an option, right? So you have to succeed. Is that something you're helping or hoping to instill in your kids?
Absolutely. So show me, don't tell me. We're in a generational society now that when you're raising as parents, it's like saying, hey, like I don't want to show my kids, like I don't want to keep telling my kids, I'm a good family dad.
Right.
Your mom's a great family person. Like that's why we have our family days. That's why we have our arguments at Monopoly on Sunday night. Sometimes when we play, like it's like you have to show them that you're there. And I think now with the generation of children because there's so much outside influence from the internet and their phone and scrolling, we have to show them like I have to be around them more than ever. So like I'm home every night, for if I'm not at their games or at their practices, not just their games but their practices. They're going to look up in the stands and be like, man, my dad was there. My father passed away almost 10 years ago, God rest his soul. And I'm like, I still remember him coaching our soccer team. Like, he wasn't the greatest coach, God bless him, but like, he wasn't like some soccer professional player, but like, man, he was there for us, right? Or like, I remember him like building a pool for us in the backyard and being like, why I built this pool? For you guys to create good memories. Like, or all the wonderful games that we went together and all the stuff and all the tough discipline he gave us. Like, you remember the memories of how he made you feel upon their passing, right? So the goal is like, I don't want them to be like, oh, my dad, my dad was successful, but he wasn't around. Right? Like, I have to be there more than ever because of the outside influences. I want to feel like my wife and I are always there. Like, hey, you could tell us, you could talk to us. Like, hey, we're not going to let that slide. Like, you've always got to be respectful. You've got to be kind. Like, and you teach them through them seeing it rather than just being told.
So where do you think because the industry's changing, right? Where do you think, we kind of touched upon it a little bit, but with Redfin, with Zillow, everybody wants a piece of the real estate commission today, right? Where do you think it's going? What happens to the average agent, and then what happens to the agents that are good?
every single change in the industry is an opportunity. Period. Like
Whether you choose to take it or not, that's up to you, right?
100%. Right. So like, I think that people keep talking about like, low commissions and like flat rate models. That's not who we are, right? Like we're not a discount broker, nor will we give you discount services. We want to give you the best services. In order to give you the best services, we won't be a discount brokerage. And we're not shy to say that. Right. Like, I find it interesting that people go on the internet and they feel like, well, I could just go straight to the agent.
Sure.
Right. Who has a listing agreement with the seller.
Right.
To represent and have a fiduciary responsibility with the seller.
Sure.
Not with you. Right. So like, and people say, yeah, but I can save on commission. I'm like, well, look at the HUD. Did you save or did that broker just,
double up? Yeah.
So I think there's a kind of a myth. It goes back to education, I think. And the other thing is that what do we do, to be fair, what do we do to our clients to keep them loyal? Right. What service are we providing? If we're providing a service to our clients, you would hope that they're going to reciprocate that A right back. I mean, there's people that say, I don't care. I want Dave. Period. Like we're super responsive. We're going to give great advice. On the way here today, someone said, you know why I called you first? Because that house in Palos Park is because I know that I can trust you and you're going to walk me through the process. It's a very large property. It's a lot of money. I think it's like 1.6 million. And it's like, I don't want just any broker. I want someone who's going to give me all the pros and cons and give me a balanced and honest, true advice. And that's who they can come to.
That goes back to a true professional.
Yeah.
Right? People will pay. There's a segment of the market which doesn't matter what it is, right? They're going to go for discount. That's just how it is.
Okay, and that's okay. That's their freedom. Yeah, they get freedom.
There are people who shop at Walmart. There are people who shop at Target. Yeah. And then there are people who go to Neiman Marcus. That's just how it is, right? It's not right, wrong, indifferent. It is what it is. What do you want, right? And so you're not worried about, oh my God, what happens to the market changes? What happens with all of these people, players like the Redfins of the world, coming in and trying to provide discounts? That's not something that bothers you.
I would never disparage another brokerage. I see a shift the other way. I think people now, after the August 17th law change, now more than ever, they're yearning for education. Like, wait, what's happening now? Like, before, people would say things like, hey, by the way, like I could show you property and the selling side's paying. Well, that's not, we never said that on open.
Right.
Like on a microphone or behind closed doors, that wasn't true.
Right.
The buyer was always paying you in a direct or indirect way.
Right.
Right. So I think that people now are like, so educate me.
Right.
And if they're not going to get that education from some of those platforms, they're going to go back to the original person that would educate them.
Right.
So I think it's going to shift. I don't know. I tend to be maybe too much of an optimist, but like, I think it's going to shift, and it has been shifting more to people being educated and say, hey, walk me through this process. We sit down with most buyers. Well, we sit down with all of our buyers, but with most buyers between 30 to 75 minutes. Here's the whole process. Let me break it down. Do you have any questions? And there's two of us in the room, not just myself. And like, let's say maybe I missed something, or maybe there's a perspective here, and they're like, wow, like, do you feel like you've left fully equipped? Like, absolutely. And I know that if they were to interview 4 other brokers, they wouldn't be doing that.
Right.
So then they're like, wait, your agent didn't sit down and walk you through the whole process? No. Like, he didn't explain all the documents? No. Like, you didn't sign something beforehand? No. Weren't you supposed to sign something beforehand? Well, I guess. I don't know the law. So I think in general, if people are going to be yearning for information, as we are, that's when they're scrolling. Everyone just wants more and more information. And that's putting us in more of a strategic positioning to help our clients.
Got it. Okay. So I guess one thing we were talking about, kind of you're buying rental properties, right?
It, yeah.
So what areas generally do you like to buy?
Southwest suburbs.
Southwest suburbs.
And definitely A paper. So
you buy A paper?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So look, I'm not against a model that is a C model or a D model. I just, for my personal portfolio, I always make this joke, and like, if I can't send not only myself, but my sister or my wife there at 10 o'clock at night, which I don't, just a full disclosure, but then I'm not buying in that area.
Got it.
So we want to deal with people that are also well-educated, intellectual, like you can reason with them. Things come up in the lease, like, hey, how can we help? Like, we don't run away from our tenants. Like, I actually I have a system to personally call all tenants minimum 3 times a year, besides the support staff contacting them. It's like, do you need anything? Like, we're not shying away from doing anything for the properties, because at the end of the day, these are our properties. So we want to we want them to be we want to attract the best people possible.
Right. So you're buying in generally A areas.
Yes.
And is there a specific kind of square footage that you like to buy, or what are your buying criteria whenever you're looking for a personal rental property?
Ideally, it's never less than 1.5 bath.
1.5
Right.
bath, okay.
Just small stuff like that.
Sure.
3 bedrooms are great, but we're not opposed to 2-bedroom. I guess it depends on the model, right? Single family, I used to love single family. I've shifted a little bit away from single family because I like the attached single.
Okay.
I think that, I don't have to worry about snow removal and landscaping, but that comes with challenges too, right?
Association fees and those sorts of things.
And oftentimes people say like, yeah, that eats into your profit, but it does provide, it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
It's providing a value.
Right.
So like if a property is vacant in December, I'm not worried about snow plowing, right? Like I'm not worried about, a heat issue. I'm not worried about, anyone like, God forbid, breaking in, like, and even in A-paper, we've never had that kind of challenge, but it puts the mind a little bit at ease.
Got it. And generally you're buying like 20% down things, or are you buying distressed properties, fixing them up, and then doing a refi out?
I don't like financing.
Okay. So you're just buying them for cash?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right, cool.
I've never been so open on an open platform like this about this, but
okay.
you ask good questions. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's just because we're always, we're coming from an investment perspective.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get people to understand what is value.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to buy 10, 15, 20, 40, 60, 100 properties, right? People come to us and we want people who are like, people who want to run in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
Right? You're a thoroughbred horse. You think you got it. Let's go. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's where because it's not possible for everybody to buy a paper, right? To buy in A areas. So we try to get them to go to B and C's, right? So instead of say the Paloses of the world, we'll say, okay, look at Alsip, look at Midlothian, look at, kind of your B markets that are close to A markets.
I like that.
Right? A markets are very desirable.
Right.
Then you have B markets, and then you have C markets.
Right.
So the way you'll relate to this. I used to do a radio show on AM 560.
Oh, cool.
And with my big mouth one day, having a real estate license at the time, I'm like, this market is shit. Right?
Oh yeah.
Next day, of course, I'm getting call from IDFPR, from the mayor of the town. You called our market. I'm like, listen, man. I'm not calling your market share. It's a bad area to invest.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, getting shot, getting robbed, getting mugged is not in my dictionary. Right? I have a big mouth and a small body. So, and so, and now I realize where they were coming from. I get it. So I kind of made it this a politically correct thing. A, meaning affluent, aspirational. B is your bread and butter. C, challenging area. D, too many challenging people with doing too many challenging things in a challenging economics is disaster, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's much more palatable for people. And, so that's why I asked that question.
But I like the B model.
Yeah.
I think the B model so it depends on what you're looking for, right? Some sweat equity to begin with, which sounds like, that makes sense for the current investment model.
Sure.
And then they go in and like, hey, I can add a lot of value here, right?
Absolutely.
And we definitely add value even in A-paper, but it's not the perspective. Our goal is to buy and hold.
Buy and hold, correct.
So not necessarily to flip.
Right.
So I think it depends on the model. The B, your model is great because the B model can get to an A model. And people are willing to pay A money for a B model that's upgraded.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to convince, what we're trying to basically show them is, listen, either you got to have income to be able to buy in areas, or you got to have savings or whatever. If you don't, then you're going to have to put some sweat equity in.
Right.
Right? There's just no two ways about it. Right? But what our goal for people is what we like to call 257, which is 2 years, 5 properties, have them paid off in 7 years. Right? And that's and people are, you can do that? I'm like, absolutely. You just have to understand how to buy them with equity, not over-fix up the properties, want long-term stable tenants.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want the highest rents. We want good quality people. And I used to say this to people all the time. I'm like, something? I want you never to walk out of the property. I want you to be carried out. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, guys, I'm serious. I literally, if you're ever going to be dead, I want you to live there that long. They would get my point, right?
Yeah.
That I'm like, listen, if you're a good tenant, you're good. I don't want to try to get the last penny out of you.
Right.
Right. We'll give you a little bit of a rent raise, but 2 to 3 years, if you're willing to sign a lease, who's going to sign a 2 or 3 year lease?
Yeah.
People who are stable.
Yeah.
People who are respectful. People who want to stay there. And generally we have 6 to 7 years, an average tenant stays in the property. Right. Yeah. I mean, these are simple, and people are like, that work. I'm like, guess what? Good people, of course, they want stability.
Yeah.
Right. They want good people that are landlords that work with them and that are reasonable people, right? And what it does is it attracts reasonable people as reasonable tenants in your life. So,
great
that's
model.
kind of what it is.
That's a great job.
So, anything else I missed as far as, so what do you think happens after the elections?
Well, what I find interesting, and you smiled when you asked about the elections, right?
No, because everybody has a kind of a two-way take on it, right?
It's real simple. I don't allow anybody, I will not allow myself to be polarized by anybody, period, right? So I find it like, I run for public office, and I've won in my hometown, and I'm very civically engaged, and I feel like at the end of the day, like I found it interesting that about 40-ish days before the election, and it happens almost, every presidential election since I've been licensed, is like people freeze. Yeah. Like, so what will happen the next day? Because I could promise you one thing: the interest rates will not go down the next day if that's what you're worried about after the election. Yeah. It's like they're like geared into like what happens. But if this person wins, but if he wins, but if she wins, I'm like, you should do what's right for you and your family.
And that's
non-contingent upon other individuals. Well, yeah, but there's other factors. Like I heard the interest rates are going to go down. I don't see anything. Yeah. So the election has taken place. How long has it been now? 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
There's been no change.
No change.
Right? So like if you should buy, you should buy. If you're living if you have 3 children and you're hoping to get out of your 2-bedroom condominium because you want a yard and you want more space.
You need a yard and more space, right?
That hasn't changed pre-election or post-election.
No,
right?
And I genuinely believe this, specifically politics aside, that whoever wins, hopefully, whoever candidate you voted for won, right? Regardless, if they won or they didn't, they're not going to change your economy. You're going to change your economy, period.
Yeah.
I don't care who the president is. There are things that all you can do is do your civic duty. And that's the end of that story. Because I think a lot of times, especially nowadays with social media, right? A lot of times, even sometimes I get hung up and I'm like, what am I doing? The hell am I doing?
No.
Right? Because
all you have to do is just put your screen time on.
Right.
It's like I've been telling everybody. Yeah. Even the agents that I coach are like, I'm not on the internet that much. I go, put your screen time on. We'll we'll go next week. I'm like, wait, you've been on your phone for an average of 7 hours a day. What are you doing? I'm working. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that makes, because I genuinely believe that. I think you may make your own economy.
Yeah.
Because there are factors you cannot control. Right. And that's what's going to have the end result. But this has been fun, man. This has been absolutely awesome. It's always, inspiring to have people who do so well and have such a positive outlook.
Man, it's
on the
great
real
to be here.
industry.
It really is.
So,
yeah. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. It's great.
No.
I've heard wonderful things for a long time.
I'd heard your name around in real estate, obviously, but didn't get a chance to meet. So this has been awesome, guys. For the audience that are listening, you're listening to Cashflow for Life. And please like, share, and help us promote the show, because that's how we grow. And if you know of a great guest, we would love to interview them. So, Dave, people have heard you.
Yeah.
They want to reach you. How do they reach out to you, man?
We have a website, daveshalabi.com, or on Instagram, Dave Shalabi, Shalabi as in boy, I.
Okay. So just spell that slowly. That way people can write it down. Dave, and then how do you spell the last name?
Shalabi as in boy, I.
Okay. So daveshalabi.com, either on Instagram and on
personal website.
On a website. Okay, great. So thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.